"I can't put ring on your finger, and I don't love you," the Mafia boss said in front of everyone, and the words fell into the room like broken glass. The restaurant was full that night, bright with warm lights and soft music, a place where people usually came to celebrate birthdays, anniversaries, and quiet successes. Grace had decorated the space herself, hanging white flowers and small golden lights because she believed this dinner mattered. Lily stood beside Marco, the man everyone feared and respected, the man many whispered about but rarely saw so closely. Lily's hands were folded in front of her, her fingers cold despite the warmth of the room, and her heart was beating so loudly she thought others might hear it. Just moments earlier, she had believed this night would change her life in a different way, that maybe a promise would be made, that maybe she would finally feel safe enough to dream openly. Instead, she felt every eye in the room turn toward her, waiting to see if she would fall apart. The silence after Marco's words was heavy and uncomfortable, the kind of silence that presses on the chest. Forks hovered in the air, glasses stopped halfway to lips, and even the waiters froze where they stood. Lily could smell the food, rich and warm, but suddenly it made her feel sick. She remembered how carefully she had chosen her dress that morning, not too bold, not too simple, because she wanted to look like a woman who belonged beside him without losing herself. Marco stood tall, calm as always, his face unreadable, his dark suit perfect as if this were just another business meeting. People knew him as the Mafia boss, the man who controlled deals, fear, and loyalty across the city, but Lily knew another side, the quiet man who listened to her talk about numbers and books, the man who once waited in a hospital hallway all night with her when her mother was sick. That was the man she had believed in, and that belief made this moment hurt even more. Lily's mind drifted back to how this evening began, how full of hope it felt. Grace had hugged her tightly in the kitchen before the guests arrived, whispering that everything would be fine. Ava had smiled from across the room, though her eyes carried worry she did not speak aloud. Lily remembered thinking that maybe Ava was wrong, that not all powerful men were heartless, that some people lived hard lives but still wanted simple things like love and belonging. When Marco arrived, the room had changed, people straightening their backs, lowering their voices, treating him like a king. He greeted Grace with respect, thanked her for the food, and then turned to Lily with a look that made her heart soften. At that moment, she believed the future was opening in front of her, slow and steady, like a door finally unlocked. Now, standing in that same place, Lily felt exposed, like her private life had been pulled into the light without her permission. She wanted to speak, to ask why he chose this moment, this crowd, this public space, but her throat felt tight. She realized that Marco had chosen this place on purpose, not to shame her, but to make sure there would be no confusion, no quiet lies whispered later. He was a man who lived by clear rules, and this was his way of being clear. The truth of that did not make it easier to bear. Lily felt tears burn behind her eyes, but she forced herself to breathe slowly, remembering her mother's voice telling her that dignity mattered, especially when life tried to take it away. Around them, people shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away, embarrassed to witness something so personal, while others watched with open curiosity, hungry for drama. Grace's hands trembled as she stood behind the counter, anger and concern fighting inside her. Ava took a small step forward, ready to protect Lily if needed, even though there was nothing to fight except words already spoken. Marco did not raise his voice or add anything else. He simply stood there, letting the truth exist between them. In that moment, Lily understood something important about real life, something no story or dream had taught her. Love was not proven by grand gestures or expensive dinners, and power did not protect the heart from pain. Sometimes, the most life-changing moments were quiet, spoken in simple sentences that could not be taken back. As Lily stood there, she felt something shift inside her, something small but strong. The shock was still there, the hurt still sharp, but beneath it was a strange clarity. She saw the path she had been walking, full of waiting and hoping without certainty, and she realized this moment, painful as it was, had ended that waiting. The public promise she thought she might receive had turned into a public truth instead. She did not yet know how she would leave this room, or what she would say, or how she would face tomorrow. All she knew was that the woman who stood there listening was no longer the same woman who had arrived earlier that evening. In front of everyone, with one sentence, the Mafia boss had changed everything, and Lily's life had quietly, deeply turned in a new direction. After the heavy silence of that night, Lily's mind began to travel backward, slowly and painfully, through the path that had brought her to stand beside Marco in front of so many people. Their story had not started with fear or power, but with something very ordinary, which made it feel more real and more dangerous at the same time. Lily remembered the first day she met him clearly, not because it was dramatic, but because it was simple. She was sitting at her desk in the small office of the shipping company, surrounded by files and numbers, when Marco walked in quietly. He did not look like a Mafia boss that day. He wore plain clothes, spoke politely, and waited his turn like anyone else. He asked about missing documents, and Lily helped him without knowing who he truly was. When he thanked her, his voice was calm, respectful, and that small moment stayed with her longer than it should have. She did not know then that this ordinary beginning would slowly pull her into a world she never planned to enter. As weeks passed, Marco returned again and again, sometimes with questions about work, sometimes with none at all. He would stand near her desk and ask about her day, about how she managed numbers so easily, about why she chose such a quiet life. Lily, who was used to being invisible, felt seen in a way she had never experienced before. She did not fall in love quickly, but she felt safe talking to him, and that feeling mattered to her more than excitement. It was only months later, through whispers and sudden changes in how others treated him, that Lily realized Marco was not just a businessman. When she finally asked him directly, her voice shaking, he did not lie. He told her the truth in the same calm way he told her everything else. He said his life was complicated and dangerous, and he would understand if she walked away. Lily remembered standing there, scared but also stubborn, thinking that life itself was dangerous and no one was ever fully safe. Their relationship grew quietly, hidden from the public eye, built on late-night talks and careful meetings. Marco never showed his violent side to Lily, but she knew it existed, like a shadow always present. He helped her in ways that felt kind but also heavy. When Lily's mother fell ill and the hospital bills became impossible, Marco took care of them without being asked. Lily tried to refuse, but he simply said that people who cared for each other helped when they could. Grace noticed the change in Lily, the way she dressed a little better, the way her eyes held both happiness and worry. Ava noticed it too and warned Lily again and again that men like Marco never truly left their world behind. Lily listened, but she believed that knowing someone deeply meant accepting their whole truth, even the parts that scared you. Over time, Lily began to imagine a future she had never allowed herself to want before. She imagined a ring, not because she wanted wealth or status, but because she wanted certainty. Marco never promised her marriage, but he never pushed her away either. He introduced her to important people, brought her to dinners, and slowly allowed her to stand beside him in public. To Lily, this felt like progress, like proof that he was changing, or at least trying. She ignored the moments when he disappeared for days, the times his phone calls stopped suddenly, the nights she waited alone, telling herself that love required patience. In real life, she learned, hope can be quiet and dangerous, because it grows strongest when it is never clearly denied. The dinner at Grace's restaurant had felt like the final step in that imagined future. Marco had chosen the place himself, and Lily took that as a sign. She did not know that he had chosen it because it was neutral ground, a place where he could speak honestly without hiding. Looking back, Lily could see the signs she missed, the way Marco had been distant that day, the way his eyes held a seriousness she mistook for nervousness. He had already made his decision long before he spoke it out loud. The truth was not sudden for him, only for her. That realization hurt deeply, because it meant the pain she felt had been waiting quietly, just like her hope. As Lily stood there after his words, her memories pressed against her heart, reminding her that this moment was not an accident but the result of every choice they had both made. Marco was not a villain standing before her, and she was not a foolish woman. They were two people from very different worlds who had tried to meet in the middle and failed. Lily understood then that real-life love did not always end with betrayal or anger. Sometimes it ended with honesty that arrived too late. The past they shared was real, full of small kindnesses and unspoken fears, and that made letting go even harder. Yet, in that painful understanding, Lily felt the first quiet step toward freedom, even if she did not yet have the strength to walk away. The truth, once spoken, had nowhere to hide, and Lily felt its weight pressed down on her long after Marco's voice faded into the quiet of the restaurant. She stood there, still beside him, aware of every breath she took and every heartbeat that echoed in her ears. People around them began to move again, slowly and awkwardly, as if life was trying to restart but did not know how. Chairs scraped softly against the floor, someone coughed, and a waiter finally walked past with a tray he no longer knew where to place. Lily realized that this moment, which felt endless to her, was only a short pause in the world of others, but for her, it was the point where everything split into before and after. She looked at Marco and saw not just the powerful man everyone feared, but a man standing without his usual protection, forced to face the human cost of his honesty. Marco finally spoke again, not loudly, not with excuses, but with the same steady tone that had always defined him. He explained that he had thought about this decision for a long time, longer than Lily could imagine. He said that every time he looked at her, he saw a life she deserved but could never have with him. His world was built on fear, secrets, and deals that could not be undone, and bringing her deeper into it would only destroy the parts of her that made her who she was. He admitted that he cared for her in his own way, but that caring was not the same as love that could build a safe future. Listening to him, Lily felt her chest tighten again, because part of her had always known this truth but had been afraid to say it out loud. Hearing it spoken so clearly made it real in a way she could no longer escape. Grace watched from a distance, her eyes filled with anger and sadness, wishing she could erase this moment for her friend. Ava stood closer now, her jaw tight, her hands clenched, fighting the urge to speak words that would only make things worse. Lily noticed these details with strange clarity, as if her mind was trying to hold on to reality while her heart struggled to keep up. She wanted to be angry, to accuse Marco of leading her on, of using her hope as comfort when his life became too heavy. But standing there, she realized that anger would not change the truth, and it would not give her back the time she had willingly given. In real life, she understood, blame often feels easier than acceptance, but it rarely brings peace. Lily finally found her voice, and when she spoke, it surprised even her. She did not shout or cry as people might expect. She asked him why he waited until now, why he let her believe in something that would never happen. Marco did not avoid her question. He admitted that he had been selfish, that being with her had made him feel normal, human, in a world that constantly demanded hardness. He said he delayed this moment because he did not want to lose that feeling. His honesty cut deeply, but it also explained the confusion Lily had carried for so long. She realized that sometimes people hurt others not because they are cruel, but because they are afraid to face their own emptiness. As the conversation unfolded in front of everyone, Lily felt exposed, but she also felt something unexpected: strength. She understood that she was not powerless in this moment, even if she was wounded. She had the right to choose how this story would continue. Looking at Marco, she saw a man trapped by his own choices, a man who could control cities but not his own life. That realization shifted something inside her. She no longer felt small standing beside him. Instead, she felt grounded, rooted in the simple truth that she wanted. A life free from constant fear and waiting. The room seemed to hold its breath again as Lily took a step back, creating physical space where emotional distance had finally formed. She thanked Marco for telling the truth, even though it hurt, because lies would have destroyed her slowly. Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything she was letting go. Grace felt tears roll down her face, proud of Lily's courage, while Ava finally relaxed her clenched fists, seeing that her friend was stronger than she had ever believed. Marco nodded, accepting Lily's response without protest, knowing this was the ending he had chosen. In that moment, Lily understood that truth offers no shelter, no comfort, and no easy escape, but it does offer clarity. Standing there, surrounded by strangers and familiar faces alike, she felt the pain of loss and the quiet beginning of freedom at the same time. The love she thought she had was real in its own way, but it was not enough to survive in the light of honesty. As she turned away from Marco, Lily did not feel like a woman abandoned. She felt like a woman stepping into a future that, for the first time, truly belonged to her. Leaving the restaurant did not feel dramatic or fast, it felt slow, heavy, and real, like walking out of a life she had lived for years. Lily did not rush toward the door or look back for one last glance. She moved calmly, guided by something deeper than pride, something that told her she had already given enough of herself to this place and this story. Grace was at her side almost immediately, placing a gentle hand on Lily's arm, not saying a word but offering a quiet support that meant more than any speech. Ava followed close behind, her eyes sharp, scanning the room as if the walls themselves might try to pull Lily back. The night air outside was cool and clean, and as Lily stepped into it, she felt a strange sense of relief, as if she could finally breathe without holding something heavy in her chest. The drive home was silent at first, the city lights passing by like distant memories. Lily watched them blur through the window, each street reminding her of moments she had shared with Marco, dinners, late-night talks, promises that were never spoken but deeply felt. Grace finally broke the silence, apologizing for what happened, even though none of it was her fault. Lily shook her head and said softly that this was not a mistake, but an ending that had been waiting for a long time. Ava, sitting in the back seat, spoke honestly, saying she was angry but also relieved, because she had always feared Lily would lose herself trying to fit into a world that demanded silence and obedience. Hearing that, Lily realized how close she had come to doing exactly that. Back at Lily's apartment, the familiar space felt different, as if it belonged to someone new. She sat on the edge of her bed while Grace made tea and Ava opened windows, letting fresh air push out the heaviness of the night. When they finally sat together, Lily allowed herself to cry, not loudly or wildly, but in quiet waves that came from deep inside. She cried for the future she had imagined, for the man she had loved, and for the part of herself that believed patience could change fate. Grace listened, holding her hand, while Ava reminded her that walking away from something wrong did not mean the love was foolish. It meant Lily had grown strong enough to choose herself. Over the next few days, Lily began the slow work of separating her life from Marco's influence. She packed away the gifts he had given her, expensive but heavy with memories, placing them carefully in a box under her bed. She did not throw them out, because anger was not what she felt. What she felt was acceptance, and acceptance required honesty, even with painful reminders. She returned to Grace's restaurant, not as a guest connected to power, but as a worker. Helping with numbers, schedules, and plans. The simplicity of the work grounded her, reminding her that she had value beyond who she stood beside. Customers greeted her kindly, unaware of the storm she had walked through, and that normality became a quiet comfort. At night, when the apartment was silent, Lily thought about Marco, not with longing, but with understanding. She realized that he had given her truth when he finally could, and while it came late, it still saved her from a future built on fear. She also recognized that loving someone did not mean sacrificing safety, peace, or identity. Real life, she learned, rarely follows romantic stories. It teaches lessons through loss, through endings that hurt but also heal. Ava moved in for a while, filling the apartment with laughter and shared meals, and Grace checked in daily, making sure Lily never felt alone in her recovery. The long walk away from Marco's world was not just physical, it was emotional and deeply personal. Each day, Lily felt a little lighter, a little more certain of who she was without the shadow of danger behind her. She began to imagine a future again, not one defined by power or protection, but by choice and clarity. The pain did not disappear, but it softened, turning into wisdom rather than regret. By walking away that night, Lily did not lose everything. Instead, she reclaimed the most important thing she had almost given up without realizing it, her own life, lived on her own terms. Time moved forward quietly, the way it always does, even after moments that feel like they should stop the world. Weeks turned into months, and Lily slowly settled into a life that felt simpler but stronger than the one she left behind. She woke up each morning without fear of sudden phone calls or unexplained absences, without the constant weight of wondering where she stood. She returned to studying accounting in the evenings, sitting at her small desk with books spread out, feeling proud that her future now depended on effort rather than influence. Grace's restaurant grew busier, and Lily played a key role in organizing finances and planning expansion. Customers began to recognize her, not as the woman connected to a powerful man, but as someone dependable and capable in her own right. That recognition, earned honestly, meant more to her than any luxury Marco had ever provided. Marco remained part of the city's hidden rhythm, his name still spoken carefully, his power unchanged on the surface. Yet, inside, he felt the absence Lily left behind. He did not try to reach her, knowing that doing so would only reopen wounds he had finally allowed to close. From a distance, he heard that she was doing well, and that knowledge brought him a quiet sense of peace mixed with regret. For the first time, he truly understood what love meant, not possession or protection, but the courage to step aside so someone else could live fully. That understanding did not free him from his world, but it softened him, shaping his choices in small ways that no one else noticed. Ava eventually moved into her own place, but she and Lily remained close, sharing dinners, worries, and laughter. Their friendship grew stronger through honesty, built on the promise that they would always speak the truths others avoided. Lily's mother's health improved, and Lily was able to care for her without fear or dependence. Life did not become perfect, but it became real, filled with manageable problems instead of constant danger. Lily learned that happiness in real life often arrives quietly, through stability, respect, and the freedom to make mistakes without fear. Sometimes, Lily thought back to that night in the restaurant, to the moment when Marco's words changed everything. She no longer felt pain when she remembered it. Instead, she felt gratitude, because that moment forced her to choose herself. She understood now that love without a future is not a failure, but a lesson, one that teaches people what they truly need. Standing in front of everyone, hearing words she never wanted to hear, had given her the clarity she was too afraid to demand. In the end, Lily did not receive a ring, but she gained something far more valuable: control over her own story. She built a life surrounded by people who supported her without fear or conditions. The future she stepped into was not handed to her by power or money, but created by courage, honesty, and self-respect. And as she walked forward, Lily knew that everything had changed for the better, not because love ended, but because truth finally allowed her to begin again.